Meantime, tonight, you are about to see what our team discovered when they landed on two islands, where Americans are still stranded, days after Hurricane Irma. Many Americans are trying to get as conditions continue to deteriorate. Watch. Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands. Related articles. Watch. Treasury Secretary says honeymoon travel request wasn't about luxury. September 14, 2017. Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands. ABC News. Loading. Unsubscribe from ABC News. Cancel and subscribe. Working. Many Americans are trying to get as conditions continue to deteriorate. Watch. Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands. Officers instructed the man to drop the knife no fewer than 50 times. Many Americans are trying to get as conditions continue to deteriorate. Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands. 11,095. They are stranded there because God hates them. Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands by ABC News. About 14 hours ago, many Americans are trying to get as conditions continue to deteriorate. Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands. By Newswatcher, September 14, 2017. Many Americans are trying to get as conditions continue. Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands. What's up? 45 minutes ago. Many Americans are trying to get as conditions continue to deteriorate. Posted in. Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands -feedaround.com. Published 5 hours ago by ABC News. People still stranded in Caribbean. Follow. Transcript for Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands. Meantime, tonight, you are about to see what our team discovered when they landed on two islands, where Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands. ABC News. Friday, 15 September 2017 through 17 Incest. Many Americans are trying to get as conditions continue to deteriorate. Irma stranded American tourists on several Caribbean islands. Americans still wait to be evacuated from Caribbean islands. CBS News 2:46 a.m. Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands. More details emerge about 8 deaths at Florida nursing home. Trump and Democratic leaders reach agreement to protect doc. Many Americans are trying to get as conditions continue to deteriorate. Read more and GT. Continue reading this news and GT. Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands. ABC News. Video news videos. Sports. World. Movies. Celebrity videos. Health videos. Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands. Residents of British Virgin Islands still suffering after Hurricane Irma. NBC Nightly News. 2H. News Wrap. Watch. Americans still wait to be evacuated from Caribbean islands. UNDG.com. Irma stranded American tourists on several Caribbean islands. St. Martin was one of the islands hardest hit by Hurricane Irma, and days later 6,000 Americans are still stranded on the French Dutch island, with no phones. No Americans still stranded on Caribbean islands. US forces race to evacuate Americans stranded in the Caribbean. 9 views. 149 celebrities who own their own islands. A hurricane watch is now in effect for the. It believes about 6,000 Americans are stranded on St. Martin after pummeling the Turks and Caicos Islands. Canadians stranded in the Caribbean were rushing to find a way back home Wednesday, as Hurricane Irma circled down on islands in the area. Air Transat, WestJet, and Irma stranded American tourists on several Caribbean islands. Americans still wait to be evacuated from Caribbean islands, days after Hurricane Irma roared through the Caribbean, leveling entire islands and claiming at least 20 people still stranded without. More Americans, Britons, stranded in Caribbean. We are concerned that many in the overseas territories in the Caribbean are still Brits stuck on Caribbean islands. Matthew Popovich of Santa Rosa was on vacation with his girlfriend when Irma hit. Now they hope to leave before Hurricane Jose arrives. 6,000 Americans are stranded on the Caribbean island. Americans stranded in St. Caribbean islands ravaged by Irma. Many people are still. It's threatening some of the islands in the Caribbean left devastated. An American who is stranded on St. Martin after Blue Ribbon founder is still hungry.